We're now on to the January 2020 paper. As you'll be able to see right off the bat, it's not a beautiful scan, it's not a good looking paper. Luckily, we won't be spending too much time on this paper because there are lots of repeat questions. So let's blaze through this paper as quickly as possible. As usual, I will not be giving explanations for the questions that I would have explained on previous papers. Number 1, justice must be seen to be done, for dash treatment can cause great dash. Okay, this one is a giveaway. Unfair treatment can cause great resentment. Pronounced treatment doesn't make sense. Unlawful treatment can cause surprise. What? Unrewarded treatment? Unrewarded treatment? So unfair treatment can cause great resentment. If persons are treated unfairly, then they will be resentful. Number 2, an attack on someone when that person is most vulnerable may be dash, but is always dash. Okay, this is a repeat question that needs no explanation. Effective, unkind. Number 3, her criticism was constructive and honest, with no dash whatsoever. Okay, so here, her criticism was constructive and honest with no something. This should be negative. We have 2 positive words here, and we're continuing with no, so it has none of whatever it is that is negative here. So candor isn't negative, coherence isn't negative, directness isn't negative. We have A, just by elimination. And it makes sense. Her criticism was constructive, so someone could learn from her criticism. It was good criticism. It was honest, so she wasn't telling any lies. And there was really no malice. She wasn't trying to spite or hurt anyone with her criticism. 4, the journalists were impressed by the dash of the statesman, whose speeches had a profound dash on all who heard them. By elimination, we're left with A. The statesman was eloquent, which means he could speak well. He had very smooth words, and so his speeches had a profound effect on whoever listened to him. The presence of the statesman, maybe this could work, but a profound result, that's very vague. We don't know what that means. And the emotion of the statesman, maybe passion would be a better word, but emotion doesn't make much sense here. And saying something has a profound sensation sounds very strange. And appearance doesn't make sense because we're talking about speeches. There are many who would try to dash your efforts because of their jealousy. And this is just testing to see if you know the word thwart. Trying to get in the way of or trying to stop your efforts. So when people are jealous of you, they will try to thwart your efforts. Bad mind is what we call it. And if people are jealous, they will not be assisting you. Affect is too vague here. We don't know what affect means here, if it's negative or positive. And they certainly wouldn't be encouraging you if they're jealous of you. So by elimination, even if you didn't know the word thwart, you would still know that that's the only possible answer. Okay, items 6 to 10 should be quite easy. You can pause here and refresh yourselves on the instructions if needs be. Let's move to number 6. It's not absolutely necessary for it to be done today. Our answer here is C. The sentence is incorrect in grammar or has some faulty diction. Now you might be saying, absolutely necessary? Is this a redundancy? It doesn't matter because, as I said earlier, if there is bad grammar or faulty diction, that will take precedence. It here should be it is, which means we're missing an apostrophe. So it is absolutely necessary. 7. Traffic bottlenecks must be ironed out if we are to prevent giant traffic congestion. Alright, this one is D. On the last paper we checked, it was A, but this time redundancy is D. So be careful, they might switch these up. Be careful that you're reading the instructions properly and that you know what criteria matches what letter. So we have redundancies here. You can check back on previous papers to see the explanation. 8. The decorations chosen for the venue complemented the theme of the gathering. So the decorations were a good match for the theme, but we have the wrong complement here. So the diction, where are we? The diction is off. Bad diction. This complement should be complemented. 9. To clarify the situation, I will write a new set of guidelines. This sentence is perfectly fine. A. 10. He advanced a step or two to meet his attacker, who suddenly became alarmed and retreated back 4 or 5 paces. This is another question we've seen before. D. Redundant. Again, pause here to read the instructions carefully. I think most of these questions we've actually seen before. 11. The team was not in no good mood to continue the game and went off to the field. Dub negative, not in no good mood. The team was in no good mood would have been correct. So it's B. 12. Had they not been forewarned, they might have joined the queue, not knowing that gas was not on sale at the station. No problem with this sentence. We've seen this question before. 13. One of the admirable characteristics of the young is that they are not easily scared. No error. They're trying to trick us with this is, but we know that one of the characteristics is. So D, there's no problem here. 14. As John listened to the lesson being taught, he began to lose interest. And based on how I read it, it should be obviously loose because this should be lose. So it's a spelling issue here. Last one, the problem with the students is that they arrive late, gives no excuse, and are rude when spoken to. Another repeat question, this should be give. So B, D, D, C, B. Let's move along. Alright, for this section, we're looking for words that are practically opposite in meaning to the underlined word. Again, pause, read the instructions carefully. Let's go to 16. She paid meticulous attention to her work as she attached the beads to the costume. So she's attaching the beads, she's paying meticulous attention. Meticulous means very detailed, very close attention. So it couldn't be careful, couldn't be detailed because these are synonyms, and cautious is not really a synonym, but it has the same connotation of paying attention. Scant means you're barely paying any attention. 17. The manager decided to inform the staff about all complaints received by customers. We're looking for opposite. If you're complaining, then you're saying something bad, something critical. Of course, the opposite of this is giving a compliment. 18. They lived in a large, sprawling, dilapidated house. If something is dilapidated, it's ruined, it's too old, it's breaking down, the paint is tearing off. Basically, the opposite of dilapidated is well kept. 19. After the story was published in the newspaper, his colleagues ostracized him. Alright, to ostracize means to criticize, mock, and jeer, but most importantly, it means to reject or ban or exclude someone. The opposite of doing all of this is accepting someone. 20. The firm was forced to retrench some workers in order to continue operating. We can use context clues in case you don't know what retrench means. If a firm, if a company wants to continue operating, then what could they do with some workers? Of course, they could fire some workers, to put it bluntly. Maybe they can't afford to pay so many workers anymore, so they will retrench or lay off some workers. The opposite of retrenching or firing or laying off workers is, of course, getting more workers, employing more workers. Okay, here for 21 through 25, we're looking for the sentence closest in meaning to the original sentence. These are all repeat questions. Because we've seen these questions already, we won't spend any time on them. What I'll do is I'll let you pause the video here and just write down your 5 answers. So write your answers for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and then I'll give you the answers. Um, 21, D, 22, C, 23, D, even though we can hardly see this, 24, D, 25, C. I'm quite sure we've seen 21, 23, 24, and 25. As for 22, since it might be a new one, let's just go through. John still wanted to marry Mary even though she had lost all her money. So Mary had lost all her money, but John still wanted to marry her. No one said that John agreed to do anything. No one said that Mary's money didn't matter. And it didn't say that John intended to marry Mary even if she were to lose all her money, because she would have already lost all her money. So C is the only correct one. The loss of all Mary's money did not affect John's wish to marry her. Alright, now we're on to Beat That Light, which I think is the most difficult extract on this paper. It's a poem that many persons just do not understand. It says, read the following poem carefully and then answer items 26 through 31 on the basis of what is stated or implied. Alright, here is a better looking copy of the poem. Beat that light. I think the horses must be laughing, kicking up their heels and chaffing, watching from their green abode the things that drove them off the road, whinnying in soft derision at breakdown, blowout, and collision, neighing as they roam the prairies, motorists' obituaries. Read the epitaphs on Monday of drivers various and Sunday. Beep the horn and howl the klaxon for Hebrew, Latin, and Anglo-Saxon. Howling klaxon, beeping horn, the funeral dirge on Monday morn. Usher out the unlucky drivers without convincing the survivors. Here's a curve and here's a truck. Take a chance and trust to luck. The next one's practically standing still. Pause here. Read this poem 2 or 3 times. This is a tricky poem. You need to ensure that you understand what the poem is actually saying, what the poem is implying. So pause here. Read it as many times as you need to. "26. Why does the poet feel the horses are laughing in line 1? Okay, we know he does not hear them laughing. It says here, I think the horses must be laughing. The prairie is all theirs to roam, so they have some big space for themselves. That would be a reason to laugh, perhaps. They're treated well by their owners. They might be treated well, but we're not told that directly. We're not even told that they have owners. And since they're roaming the prairies, they might be wild horses. And D, they were replaced with something which causes harm. All right, I'm gonna break down the point for you guys. This is kind of cheating, but we're really practicing for the exam, so I won't waste the time. I'll let you know exactly what this poem is actually saying, because it's an extremely tricky poem, very tricky poem. So the speaker is looking at the horses and saying, wow, these horses must be laughing. These horses must be saying, look at these stupid humans. Look at how they replace us with cars. These are obviously cars, right? So let's take it line by line. I think the horses must be laughing, kicking up their heels and chaffing. Chaffing is a critical word because it means ridiculing or making fun of someone. So the horses are laughing and making fun of us. Why are they making fun of us? Why are they ridiculing us? Let's see. They're watching from their green abode. So they're in this safe space. They have their prairies that they can roam safely. And why are they laughing and chaffing? They're watching the things. So they're watching from their abode the things that drove them off the road. Whinnying in soft derision. What does whinnying mean? Whinnying is really the sound of horses. Neighing. That's the sound. That is the sound horses make. But importantly, we have derision. What is derision? This poem is a vocabulary test. Derision links back to chaffing and laughing. Derision is that feeling of, looking at someone with disdain, with ridicule, basically having the attitude that someone else is really a laughing stock. So they're ridiculing, laughing at the fact that we took horses off the road and replaced them, not with something better than them, but with something that is breaking down and blowing out and colliding. Whinnying in soft derision at breakdown, blowout, and collision. Cars break down, have blowout, and collide. They're neighing as they roam the prairies. And then you see here, motorists' obituaries. What are obituaries? An obituary is like a reading that is done at a person's death, at a person's funeral. It's often published in newspapers, and sometimes the epitaph, which is like a shorter form, is written on the gravestone. So looking at stanza 1, the speaker is saying, I think. So this is all from the mind of not the horses, the speaker. The speaker is looking at the horses and saying, boy, these horses must be having such a grand time. They must be laughing at us because we are so stupid. We had horses on the roads, back in the day, before cars we had horses, we would ride horses. We had horses, but we have replaced them. We have thrown the horses out. We have abandoned them. Now they're roaming the prairies free. No one is riding and owning them anymore. They are free to roam. While instead of having reliable horses that wouldn't crash and collide and kill people, we are now driving cars, trucks. And obviously, this is a bad decision. This is stupidity based on what the reader thinks. So he thinks the horses are laughing and chaffing and whinnying in soft derision because he thinks that it's a bad idea to replace the horses with cars. Is that clear? Pause, reread, make sure that the first stanza is clear to you. The speaker is being very sarcastic. He is ridiculing us by saying the horses must be laughing at us. We see derision, we see chaffing, we see laughing. Alright, let's look at stanza 2. Read the epitaphs on Monday of drivers various on Sunday. So drivers are dying like crazy, weekly. Every Monday we have a new epitaph to read. Every Sunday a driver dies, perhaps. Beep the horn and hold the klaxon. The klaxon is basically a loud horn for Hebrew, Latin, and Anglo-Saxon. Howling klaxon, beeping horn, the funeral dirge on Monday morn. A dirge is like a mournful poem or song. So we're talking about the funerals of the dead drivers here. So we have replaced the horses with the cars, and as a result, we're having funerals. People are dying. Alright? Now look at these lines. Beep the horn and hold the klaxon. We know that cars have horns. So actually we see the horns being very much tied into the dirge, into the funeral setting, into the deaths. So it's almost as if you're driving on the road, and you beeping your car horn is basically heralding your own funeral. That is the impression given here. Usher out the unlucky drivers. Of course, the unlucky one must be those who would be dead by now. Usher out the unlucky drivers without convincing the survivors. Critical line. So even though we see so many deaths, even though after having replaced the horses with cars, people are dying like crazy on the roads, we are still the ones who survive, the ones who live to die another day. They are not even convinced. They are still not seeing the problem. They still don't realize that driving on the roads, replacing horses with cars, is causing a problem. So we are still unconvinced. The speaker is basically resigned. He's saying, boy, we're so stupid. Even though it's so obvious, we can't see the problem. Without convincing the survivors. Look at this. Here's a curve and here's a truck. So here we see a curve on the road, a dangerous corner, and here's a truck. Take a chance and trust the luck. So he's basically saying this is what we are doing. We see a curve, we get a truck. We're just taking chances with our lives, trusting to luck. So driving on these roads is nothing more than a game of chance. It's Russian roulette. The next one's practically standing still. What next one? This is a bit ambiguous. It could imply that the next person who's going to die is practically standing still. So they're basically waiting in line to die. But more literally, it's connected to the previous two lines. Here's a curve and here's a truck. So go on. No problem. Overtake that truck on the curve, which is extremely dangerous. Take a chance. If you're going to be overtaking a truck at a curve, you're taking a chance. You're trusting to luck. Because if you're unlucky, you're going to die. We saw that reference to luck in line 15. The next one's practically standing still. The next car, the car up ahead, the truck up ahead, it's not even moving quickly, so you can overtake it easily. This is all sarcastic. The writer does not want us to take a chance and trust the luck and overtake any truck around a curve. He's basically saying this is what we are doing and we need to wise up. So here, the speaker, the deep message that the speaker is trying to bring to us is that the roads are dangerous because of, how, not just the fact that we use cars and vehicles, but that we are reckless in how we use them. We have replaced the horses, which were a much safer alternative, a safer means of transportation. And we're killing off ourselves with this more modern method of transportation. So you could say that the message of this poem is for us to recognize that we need to be more careful on the roads. Maybe not everyone should be a driver. If you are driving, be careful because people are dying weekly and this is not even a necessary thing. We're just being careless. And we see this message brought out in a kind of sarcastic way. The horses must be laughing at our stupidity. So that's what this poem is really all about. It's a tricky poem, but now that we have a better understanding of the poem, let's get into the questions. 26. Why does the poet feel the horses are laughing? Line 1. Answer D. As I've explained, they were replaced with something which causes harm. They're laughing at us, ridiculing us. He doesn't hear them laughing. He says, I think. The prairie is all theirs to roam. Yeah, but that's not why they're laughing. They have all this space to roam, but that is not why they're laughing and chaffing. And they're treated well by their owners. We don't even know if they have owners. So that's crazy. What are the things suggested in line 4? The things that drove them off the road. Obviously, vehicles. The things that drove horses off the road are the same things that have breakdowns, blowouts, and collisions. Accidents couldn't have driven the horses off the road, or explosions or traffic jams. But what are the things that are involved with all these? Vehicles. 28. Which of the following words suggests the driver's destiny? The destiny is where the drivers will end up. It has to be their obituaries in line 80, because this means they're going to be dead. None of these have anything to do with the driver's destiny. 29. According to the poet, what days seemed to be the most prone to fatalities? In other words, when do most of the drivers die? Most of the drivers die on Sundays. Now, C and D would be out, so how do we choose between Mondays and Sundays? Well, it's actually clear. Read the epitaphs on Monday. You would read the epitaph after the death. It wouldn't be necessarily on the same day the drivers die. If someone dies today, you won't have the funeral and the epitaph and everything on the same day. Plus, in line 10, it says of drivers, various and Sunday. So various drivers die on Sunday. That is just a poetic way of saying that. The drivers are connected to these two words. They're various because many drivers are dying. They're connected to Sunday because Sunday is when they usually die. So 2 pieces of evidence for B. 30. What is the poet's tone in lines 17 to 18? Here's a curve and here's a truck. Take a chance and trust to luck. What does that sound like to you? Remember, the aim, the underlying message is for us to be more careful on the road. You need to understand the poet's intent. What is it that the poem is trying to tell us? And then we see here a direct contradiction of the overall intent of the poem. Here's a curve, here's a truck. Here you see a curve. Jump in this truck, go and kill off yourself. Obviously, it's being sarcastic. These make no sense. Madness. This is sarcasm. 31. The poet is recommending that drivers drive. This is where you need to unlock your poetic sense. It might seem as if he wants us to drive recklessly, but remember, the aim, the intent of the poem is to highlight this situation and to get us to realize what's happening and do something about it. So he's saying, here's a curve and here's a truck, take a chance and trust the luck. He's not literally telling us to go and jump over a cliff or run over a precipice. What he's actually trying to tell us is that we need to be careful. We need to drive carefully. He uses the sarcasm here by saying the opposite of what he actually means. He spends half of the first stanza showing us the deaths that happen as a result of recklessness. So he couldn't be telling us to be reckless. Why are the horses laughing? They're laughing because we're being reckless, we're being stupid. And that is the problem that we need to fix. How do we fix it? Not by being more reckless, by being careful. So when you see the words of a poem, you can't take them at face value. You have to look at the intent. You have to look at all of the poem on a whole and see what the message actually is. So the answer is definitely C. I've seen many persons choose D, but D cannot be correct if you understand poetry. Luckily, you guys only got 6 questions on this poem. It's a tough poem that has appeared on 2 papers, one recent, one not so recent. And on both papers, it caused problems because students of English A aren't necessarily students of English B. which means not all students really know how to read poetry. And this is a poem that tests your ability to read and understand poetry. Anyhow, let's move on. Okay, here we've moved on to the next passage for items 32 through 41. As usual, I'll read and then I'll give you a chance to read on your own. The moment Aldrich stepped outside, Carnival hit him, and his heart grew big, and he felt a softness flow over him. And on the street, the steel band and masqueraders were assembling. The months of practicing and sewing and painting and building were flowing together in the stillness of the morning under the eyes of women and children who had awakened from sleep and dressed hurriedly to come out and watch their band, to see their people, to admire them and cheer them and accompany them, to tramp the pavement while the masqueraders occupied the street as a sort of guard right into Port of Spain. It hit him, the red and black and gold and green, the colors and the feathers of the satin, and the people's faces with that look in their eyes, and the smell of cologne and face powder, and the smell of grease and the look of wonder on the children's faces, and the little fellas with sailor caps on. And what reverence and what awe, as they alone in the whole world had the real eyes to see the real thing, to see heroes, to see giants, to see gods. And watching, fascinated by it all, as if he were seeing with the boy's eyes, Aldrich felt a tallness and a pride, felt his hair rise on his head, and full of brimming with furious tears, Aldrich felt again the fierce love and hope that he had doubted in himself, felt again a sense of mission, felt that yes, there was a place for him here, that there was something to say yes to, and people before whom and on whose behalf he could dance the dragon. With a strong piercing scream, he stepped into the street, his chains rattling, his arms outflung, his head lolling in a slow, threatening dance of the beast, so that the people on the hill turned to him, recognizing him, said, "Yes, yes, that is Dragon." Thrilling passage, isn't it? You may pause here and take your time to read the passage. Alright, let's get into number 32. The words hit him, lines 1 and 8, are used to emphasize the impact of. Answer A. The excitement of the carnival. So the moment he stepped outside, the carnival, the vibe, the atmosphere, the energy, all that is happening in the carnival, it just struck him. It hit him. We see here, it's further explained in line 8. It hit him. What hit him? The red and black and green and gold, the colors and the feathers, the people's faces with that look in their eyes, the cologne, the face powder, the smell of grease, all of these carnival elements just hit him. And of course, it wasn't a literal hit, so it couldn't be objects being thrown, and we didn't see any collisions happening. D is close, but it's not just the noise and smells, but it's really everything. It's also the colors. We see red and black and green and gold. And we see the sight of the fellas with the sailor caps on. 33. And his heart grew big in line 1 means that Aldrich this is easy, felt great pride. We see that he's going to be playing a critical part in this carnival. He's dancing the dragon. And we know that this carnival means a lot to him. And so his heart grew big. And we see here, he felt a softness flow over him. He felt that overwhelming feeling of his heart welling up. This is great pride. And we see here in the last paragraph, Aldrich felt a tallness and a pride. So it's actually explained later down. Perhaps he wanted to cry, but why? Because he felt great pride. The greater meaning is that he felt great pride. And he didn't feel angry, and we don't know about D. 34. Lines 2 and 3 suggest that preparations for carnival entail a great deal of C. Hard work. Let's look at the lines. We see here the months of practicing and sewing and painting and building. So we can see that a lot of preparation was going on here. And we see that it's months. They weren't preparing for just a few days. It was months of work. Practicing, that's work. Sewing, that's work. Painting and building, that's work. And none of these really make sense. It wouldn't have been excitement because the carnival would be the spectacle of excitement. But before the carnival, we had the months of hard work. The repetition of and in line 3 of the extract is intended to show so we're looking at the same line here, practicing and sewing and painting and building. Why would the writer repeat and as opposed to just, use some lovely commas? The writer is showing the continuous nature of the activities involved. We see here there are months of these things, and the writer is showing us how continuous, how non-stop this all was. Something and something and something and something. It gives us the impression that this is not ending. There is no end in sight. It's like the preparation was going on forever. These are out. 36, lines 4 and 5 suggest that. Let's see, women and the children who had awakened from sleep and dressed hurriedly. They dressed hurriedly to come out and watch their band, to see their people, to admire and cheer them on. So obviously they didn't want to miss the spectacle. They got up early. They came out to watch. Time was passing quickly. This doesn't add up here. We don't see time passing quickly, and these are just silly. 37. What reverence and what awe in line 11 means that the spectators were. Let's see. And what reverence and what awe, as they alone in the world had the eyes to see the real thing. They must have been captivated. They must have been in this state of speechlessness. So reverence and awe speak to that captivation where your jaws have dropped and you can't even speak. You're just looking wide-eyed. So captivated, you are immersed into what's happening. At some points they might have been astonished, but the overall feeling is one of captivation. And C and D are out. 38. The reaction of the people to Aldrich's dance was one of. Okay, the answer is C. Recognition and approval. Look here. The people recognized him. They approved. They said, yes, this is dragon. That is approval. So it's the only possible answer. C. 39. The last sentence of the extract, lines 17 to 20, gives the impression that Aldrich's dance is intended to be. This one is tricky, apparently. I've often seen the wrong answer selected, but it has to be frightening. Look at the evidence, guys. With a strong, piercing scream, he stepped into the street, his chains rattling. This is intended to be frightening. The intention of this dance is not to have people saying, "Oh, what a cute dragon." It's to have people shaking, cowering. Of course, it's a part of the carnival excitement. Especially kids should watch this dragon and just get nightmares. This dragon is supposed to frighten the people, but in a way where they would be excited and captivated. We see his arms outflung, scary, head lolling, very scary. slow, threatening dance. Scary stuff. And then the people recognized and approved that yes, this is as frightening as we need it to be. So it's supposed to be frightening. Surprising, cheerful, these are out. Amusing, they're not just amused, they're shaken up by this dance. 40. In describing carnival, the writer makes use of the senses. Which of the following senses is not used in the extract? Answer, taste. There is no sense of taste here, and we can check that we have sight, smell, and hearing. Let's see. We see here the red and black and gold and green, the colors and feathers of satin. So feathers of satin along with the colors. We have touch and we also have sight. So sight would be out. We see the smell of grease. So we have smell. We hear the steel band. We hear the piercing scream here, and I'm sure there are other evidences of hearing. So it has to be A, taste. 41. The most suitable title for the extract is? I hate these most suitable title questions, but the entire extract here is about the carnival, so it has to be D. The Carnival of Port of Spain. Carnival does not seem to be on the decline. People are as excited as ever. And the dragon isn't weak here. Could it be the dragon's heart? I thought about this, but it's not as if the entire extract is about the dragon. The dragon really came in the last paragraph, but the entire extract is about the carnival. So when you're looking for a suitable title, look at what the entire extract is about, not just one paragraph or one line. Okay, that's it for this passage. Let's move down to the next passage for items 42 through 49. Land and air and water are filled with living things, but apart from mankind, they scarcely ever change, or if they do, it is over vast periods of time. Ferns grow and fish swim just as they did long before man walked upon the earth. The industrious ants continue their routine of self-preservation and self-perpetuation as they did when the dinosaurs ruled. But man, in his comparatively brief history, has transformed both the world and himself. His specific quality is purposeful change through thought. He is man, the thinker. The human brain works like a heart, ceaselessly pulsing day and night, from childhood to old age. That man thinks all the time is a familiar idea, but it is a less familiar concept that all human history might be best understood as a process of learning. It was by learning that we ceased to be animals and made ourselves into men. Far back in the warm jungles, somehow, cell by cell and reflex by reflex, and with it our two other miraculous human powers, our fantastically intricate speech and our ingenious, adaptable hands. The earliest tools were scarcely more than lumps of stone, with a few corners chipped off to fit the hands roughly. But gradually, century by century, better stones are selected, and they are chipped and smoothed and rounded and sharpened until they are not only efficient, but almost handsome. It is impossible to look at those stone tools and to imagine their makers without feeling pity, admiration, and affection for our clever, industrious ancestors, and without renewing our reverence for the growth of the human mind. After the stone tools came the control of fire, the skillful, almost magical transformation of lumps of earth into hard pottery and durable metal, the creation of the wheel. Equally wonderful, perhaps more wonderful, was the invention or development of plants. Almost everything we consume, except animal food, is part of a plant, carefully bred from selected stock: wheat, sugar, fruits, tobacco, hemp, cotton. Some intelligent man or woman found each plant growing wild in the jungle, tasted or tested it, and by patient experiment discovered how to rear and improve it. This was one of the real beginnings of civilization. In that slow, patient process, men improved the plants, and the plants improved men. Men ceased to live at random. They settled down and grew together. Cultivated fields made men invent rules and observe seasons. Therefore, laws were devised, the calendar was established, and astronomy became a science. By such and other growth, we moved from primitive animalism through primitive human savagery to civilization. Pause here and read the passage on your own. Read carefully. Let's jump down to 42. The writer's use of the phrase, as they did when the dinosaurs ruled, in line 4, is intended to answer A. Indicate the time which has passed. Let's look at the entire paragraph in order to see the context for line 4. Land and air and water are filled with living things, but apart from mankind, they scarcely ever change, or if they do, it is over vast periods of time. Everything else will support this phrase. It's over vast periods of time. Let's see. Ferns grow and fish swim just as they did long before man walked upon the earth. So it's saying these changes happened over a long period of time. Long before man walked upon the face of the earth. Long before man walked upon the earth. So, a long time ago. The industrious ants continue their routine of self-preservation and self-perpetuation since a long time ago, as they did when the dinosaurs ruled. This is used to show us how much time would have passed. 43. The purpose of paragraph 1, lines 1 through 6, is to answer B. Compare the development of man with that of other living things. So the whole passage is saying man has developed at a more impressive rate than any other living thing. Man is special because we learn, we think, we grow, we adapt, we evolve over a short span of time. In contrast, the other animals, the plants, the other organisms, they take ages to develop. Let's see how the development of man is compared to the development of other things here. We see that land, air, and water are filled with living things, but apart from man, so we have a contrast, a comparison. Apart from man, they scarcely ever change. Or if they do, it's over vast periods of time. So the difference here, just in the first sentence, is that the other living things, they barely change. And if they change, it takes a long time. But man is different from that because it says here, apart from man. And we see some examples. Ferns and fish. So living things here, ferns and fish, they swim just as they did a long time ago. The industrious ants continue their routine from a long time ago. But, word of contrast, man, in his comparatively brief history, has transformed the world and himself. So the entire paragraph here is comparing the development of man with that of other living things. That's it. 44. In lines 7 to 8, the writer's comparison between the human brain and the human heart serves to obviously A. Look at the lines. The human brain works like the heart. Now, let's look at what this comparison means. Ceaselessly pulsing, day and night, from childhood to old age. So the brain never stops working. That is the point of the comparison. A. 45. Which of the following is not mentioned by the writer as a source of man's remarkable powers? Answer A, man's reflexes. The passage did not mention that this is one of our remarkable powers. Let's see where the reflexes, or where the word reflexes is mentioned. Here from line 10 to 11. Far back in the warm jungles, somehow, cell by cell and reflex by reflex, the wonderful human brain was formed. So the word reflex here it's kind of a trick in this question. This is just telling us how the brain was formed. It's not talking about the reflexes of man. Cell by cell, reflex by reflex, the human brain was formed. So this is not man's reflex. This is about how the brain was formed. So this is not mentioned as a remarkable power of man, but simply used in illustrating how the brain would have developed. And this is the only place where reflex is mentioned. Let's look at the rest. We know that the human brain is mentioned as one of our remarkable powers. That happens in paragraph 2. Man's capacity for speech also is said to be miraculous. We see here, and with it, our 2 other miraculous human powers, clearly stated. Our fantastically intricate speech, and also the next one here is mentioned, and our ingenious adaptable hands. So A is the only one not mentioned in this capacity. 46. One quality of our tool-making ancestors, identified by the writer in paragraph 3, is that they were Okay, let's look at paragraph 3. We see that century by century they selected stones, they smoothed, rounded, sharpened until they were effective and also handsome. So the ancestors worked on the tools, right? And it's impossible to look at them without feeling pity, admiration, and affection for our clever, industrious means hardworking, industrious ancestors. So they're obviously hardworking. They're not reflective, and handsome is used to describe the tools, and they're not unimaginative because they had enough imagination and enough sense to improve the tools over time. 47. The writer's intention in lines 13 to 14 is to Okay, this one has tricked many, teachers included. The writer's intention. Why did the writer write lines 13 through 18? Let's look at the lines. So we're looking at this entire paragraph. No need to reread it, but look at the paragraph in the context of the entire passage. We see here in paragraph 1, the writer is saying, man is different from the other living things because we develop quickly. We're special. In line 2, we talk about the human brain and how it separates us from other living things. Basically, mankind has a different kind of brain. Our brain is special. Man is a smart species. We are sensible, we are intelligent. And this intelligence would have been honed from the time of our ancestors until now. Now, this whole paragraph about the tools is really showing us that indeed man is skillful. So it's not about tracing the development of tools. Remember, you're looking at not just what is literally said, but what is the intent behind saying it. The writer shows us how, not just how tools were developed, but how man developed tools in order to support the point that man is skillful. Look at this. The earliest tools were nothing more than lumps of stone. And we see that they were sharpened until they were not just efficient, but almost handsome. Who sharpened them? Our ancestors, man. It is impossible to look at those stone tools and to imagine their makers without feeling pity, admiration, and affection for our clever, industrious ancestors, and without renewing our reverence for the growth of the human mind. So the point of this paragraph is not necessarily just that tools developed. It's that mankind, through their skill, through the power of their brain, developed tools. So while B seems to be a close contender, A is the answer, because we are looking at the writer's intent. Not just what is stated, but why it was stated. 48. In paragraphs 4 and 5, the author links the actual beginnings of civilization with answer A, cultivation of plants. We see here almost everything we consume except animal food is part of a plant, carefully bred and selected stock. Blah 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 blah. Some intelligent man or woman found each plant growing wild in the jungle, tasted or tested it, and by patient experiment discovered how to rear and improve it. Look at the next line. This was one of the real beginnings of civilization. That's our answer. The beginning of civilization is connected to the plants. It's only after having learned to make use of plants that we really began to be civilized. In that slow, patient process, the same process dealing with the plants here, men improved the plants and the plants improved men. Another big hint. So men moved from being savages to being civilized, because not only did we improve the plants, but in turn the plants improved us. Men ceased to live at random. They settled down and grew together. This is talking about civilization. And plants have something to do with how we were able to do that. We cultivated fields, we invented rules, we now had a calendar, and all of these things are related to the plants. So that's the only possible answer. Last one for this passage. According to the passage, in what order did the following accomplishments take place? Okay, this is all about just rereading the passage. It's B. Let's see why it's B. So the first one, refining of stone tools. That happens in paragraph 3. Then we have 3, which is the command of fire. That happens at the beginning of paragraph 4. After the stone tools came the control of fire. And then number 2, which is the transformation of earth into pottery. We have that in the same line here. Transformation of lumps of earth into hard pottery. And finally, we have 4, which is the perfection of plant life, which happens at the end of the 4th paragraph down into the last paragraph. So that's it. Moving down to the next passage. Celestial is not just for tourists. Many from neighboring islands find themselves hopping over to Celestial during a long weekend for a quick and enjoyable escape. This is because people know that on this tiny isle, there is so much to see, so much to do, and so much on offer. All the leisure time you have during your stay can be spent in so many different ways. Maybe you would prefer to spend your holiday sleeping in late into the afternoons, awaking to be served a scrumptious breakfast in bed, lounging around the pools or beaches, basking in the warm sun, souvenir shopping, or mingling with the locals and acquainting yourself with a new and fascinating culture. With so many things to do on the island, your choices are endless. There are so many engaging ways to experience the pleasing sights, sounds, and scenery of this island paradise. Sightseeing, though, is by far one of the most fun and the dynamic ways of learning about all that Celestial has to offer. A nice alternative to the typical travel itinerary, with scheduled times for specific activities, is to do what comes naturally here and take it slow. Stop as you go. Pull over at lookout points and rest stops for an eat and a drink, while chatting and admiring some extraordinary places of interest. The most developed areas of Celestial are relatively modern, with numerous trendy hotels. A few resorts and scattered modest guest houses can be found, in addition to the international airport. Along the Caribbean coast, there is a seemingly infinite stretch of white sandy beaches, which are a favorite with tourists. Blisstown is the vibrant and scenic capital and port that is the hub of all the island's activities. Alright, pause here and read. What is the writer's main purpose? This whole thing is an ad encouraging tourists to visit Celestial. Look at all we can do, look at all we can see, look at all we can enjoy. It's not just about stating the location or comparing attractions or features. All of these are done in order to encourage us to come to Celestial, encourage tourists. 51. According to the extract, Celestial is located Answer C. In the Caribbean. You see here, along the Caribbean coast, there is a seemingly infinite stretch of white sandy beaches. Alright, so it's in the Caribbean, obviously. 52. The repetition of the words so much and so many serves to D. Convey the writer's excitement about the variety of things to do. There's so much to see, so much to do, so much on offer. We can see that the writer is excited about the number of ways in which they can enjoy themselves. And these cannot be eliminated easily because these are all nonsense answers. 53. Which of the following phrases suggests the variety of experiences Celestial offers? as presented by the writer. Giveaway. Your choices are endless in line 8. With so many different things to do on the island, your choices are endless. So obviously, there are many different things you can enjoy. These are all out. Don't be tricked by the word alternative. An alternative just means maybe there's a second option, but your choices are endless. That suggests that there are many options. 54. According to the extract, visitors to Celestial may stay at all of the following except C. Reread the passage if necessary. You will see that they may not stay at rest stops. It says here you can pull over at lookout points and rest stops for an eat or a drink. That's all it says. Alright, let's move down to the final piece of this puzzle. Read the following advertisement carefully and then answer items 55 to 56 on what is stated or implied. I won't be reading anything here. I'll just allow you guys to read and then I'll jump into the questions. "55. One fact contained in the advertisement is..." Answer is A, the price of the product. This is the only fact contained in the ad. You see that the product goes for $9.99. Let's eliminate the others. Expert approval of acne be gone. We see here tested by a dermatologist, and then we see below it approved. But this could be tricky marketing. It doesn't necessarily say straightforwardly that dermatologists or other experts have approved the product. It just says it was tested, and then below it we see approved. So maybe they're putting these two texts close together so that we can infer that it has been approved, but this was not stated as fact. C, that sources everywhere are selling the product. That is simply not stated. D, the product's popularity and effectiveness. Of course, these are not factual but opinions. 56. To whom is the product mainly targeted? Obviously B, people who suffer with acne. This is an acne cream. Of course, if you're ambitious or if you want a date for graduation, if you lack confidence, it may apply to you. But the factor that connects all of these people is that they suffer with acne. This is the main thing. 57. Which of the following techniques are used to persuade in this advertisement? Another controversial question. I think it's D. 1, 2, and 3. All of these. So usually it's between D and C. But showing the container, especially with this graphic of the sparkler or the shining element around it, it does help us to imagine what the product is like physically. It gets us a bit more attached to the product and a bit more invested. When you see an image of something, it becomes more real and it makes you want it more. So showing the product, especially in this bubble of light or shining, it really adds to the enticement. And obviously the financial enticement and appeal to fears and desires, those work as well. We see appeal to fears and desires here. Do you want a date for graduation? Do you want your confidence back? Do you want to clear all unsightly blemishes? They're appealing to fears and desires here. A language device used in the advertisement to persuade is... Only rhetorical questions are used. And we see 3 back to back here. Back to back to back. What might be the purpose of the size of the font used to describe the side effects? This one is extremely tricky, but it's A. It suggests that the side effects are minor. We see here at the bottom in small text, side effects include blah blah blah. and they make this small, so you can think that the side effects are actually not so noticeable, not so significant, not so important. It doesn't hide the consequences because the text is still there. It's not hidden, it's just small. And it doesn't misdirect the reader to do anything. Now, D is a close contender. It demonstrates that the problems are minor in comparison to the benefits. The main problem with D is the word demonstrates. This doesn't demonstrate anything. It might insinuate, it might hint, but just making the text smaller wouldn't necessarily demonstrate anything. So A is the perfect answer. Final question. The words while stocks last under the checked price most likely would have the effect of. I've seen wrong answers for this one, but it has to be B. Persuading the reader to buy the product quickly. You have to get it now. Stocks are going to run out any day now. If you don't get it now, maybe you will not have a chance to get it tomorrow. You have to come in and buy it now while stocks last. That is basically it. Nothing to do with saving money. This doesn't make sense. And while stocks last doesn't make us feel as if we need it. What it would bring to mind is that I have to hurry and get this thing now because they're going to run out soon. And that's it. We've covered the 2020 paper.